Hello, I'm Jerry Deshane. This is The Local Perspective. It's a cooperative publication of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and community access stations around Wisconsin, working together to talk about municipal issues, a variety, everything from sewer treatment plants and public works to the democratic process. And that's kind of where we are today. We're talking about engagement, getting your citizens involved in their municipal government. Abraham Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address said, it's a government of the people and by the people. And that literally means there's no ruling class, it's just us folks. And one of the challenges that cities have throughout Wisconsin is getting the public to interact, getting them to be part of the process. In the December issue of the Municipality magazine, which I've got with me, Scot Simpson, the city administrator for the city of River Falls, wrote an excellent piece on engagement. Scott is our guest this morning, and we're going to talk about that. So, first of all, welcome, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, welcome to River Falls.
I was about to say, I should say thank you for having me because we're up in River Falls in your studio today. Scott, just for the audience's sake, is an ICMA credentialed city manager. You've been in Janesville, Wisconsin, Lancaster, and since 2009 here in River Falls.
Yes. In
your current capacity. So let's start sort of with you. Why this career? I mean, before we start talking about how we get citizens engaged, tell me how we got you engaged in government.
I think the origins of that, I've had now 18 years to think about it, so I think it started probably witnessing my father really being involved in the community in a number of capacities. As a small business owner in Beloit, Wisconsin, had a stint on both the city council and the school board, and basically I don't think ever said no to any board, committee, advisory post, or volunteer opportunity that was put in front of him. So I think the community involvement piece, or the passion for improving communities, really was planted early on in Beloit, and then went to Carroll College, now Carroll University, and as a lot of folks do, they kind of have a plan. I'm going to go work for M&I or some other big firm in Milwaukee, business major. You have things that happen in college and experiences, internships, mentorships, and other opportunities, and so the seed was already planted, I think, early, but then college gave me an opportunity to explore some opportunities working in local government. I worked in Waukesha County while I was an undergrad still, and really found out about this local government profession, and I've been hooked since. So. And I've chosen it now because you obviously have the opportunity to change things. People can change all the time. So I think I've really chosen it now because it's fun. I like doing it.
Great, terrific. Well, and that's sort of what captured my eye and what captured Gail Sumi's eye. You wrote an article, and the headline is, "It's Everyone's Business." What does that mean to you in the sense of citizen engagement? What is "it's everyone's business"?
Yeah, well, I guess first a disclaimer, I'm neither a scholar or an expert in the topic, but it certainly is something I think is really critical to being successful going forward for cities. And it certainly has helped us have success here in River Falls and other communities that I've witnessed it in. So the backdrop is, why is it important to me? Because I just think things are changing. So this engagement is not new. It's just different. So as small communities were gathered, obviously folks got together and they would be discussing issues, whether it was at church or at school or community clubs or some other engagement opportunity they had together, and they would kind of talk about it, and there would be that natural engagement, and often there'd be a city official part of that discussion, so it would be carried back into the city organization. As lives get busier and youth sports take people's time and commutes get a little longer, and there's still that need to have that engagement, those conversations amongst the residents in our representative form of government, but it's not as easy for city council people, city clerks, city staff to have that natural engagement. So I don't think engagement is a new thing. I think it happened a little easier and a little more naturally in the past, and I think now we're just trying to find ways to keep that engagement going, knowing that people's lives are a little bit different. But I don't think the interest
for their time.
Yeah, and I don't think the interest is lost. I think what we found is that people are still very interested in their local community. So it's not that they're distracted or that they're not interested. It's just that their time is organized in a different manner than it may have been before. And so committee meetings or advisory meetings or city council folks kind of scattered across the city, it doesn't have the same impact because there's not those connections necessarily. So we're just doing, a lot of what we do as engagement is just giving people opportunities to have multiple points of contact, and then getting those multiple views and multiple perspectives kind of back into the system. So really, the reason we say it's everybody's business is because it's not just the city administrator or the mayor or an alderperson going out and saying, all right, it's my job, and I will collect I will do engagement for the city.
I am the engagement officer.
We just need all hands on decks. We need those opportunities when one of our maintenance workers is in the parks and they're working with somebody, they're working on a project and there's a resident in there that they stop and have a conversation with. There's information to be gained, there's knowledge that we can improve upon, and then that engagement can improve what we provide in services.
Well, and it's even I came away with the sense that it's even in the little things. You have a beautiful city hall, by the way, about 7 years old, the first LEED certified city hall in Wisconsin, someone
Correct.
told me. But you talk about having that open and available, that the library's here, that people can access. It's a place for people to come and go.
Right. So we have, and again, that may be a good comparison too. In the past, when River Falls was formed, the library, the city hall, the police department, the utility office, the fire department, the ambulance, everything was in one building, and it was kind of a hub of activity, and people kind of knew that was their government and their place to go. And as we've grown as a city, we've separated some of those facilities. And we do have a beautiful library that's a separate facility, and it certainly is a community center for the community. But we want to make sure people know City Hall is still an open place and a friendly place for them to go, because one of the keys that we see to engagement is really getting people comfortable, because first of all, it's not as easy as it may seem to just state your piece, or there's maybe some hesitancy for people to rock the boat or to say what they're concerned about. So you want to provide a comfortable environment where they think, all right, this is not an intimidating thing. I need to go to the 6th floor and the second window and provide my input to City Hall.
To a scowling person
That's
on the
right.
other side.
And also that they trust then that when they provide that information or those concerns or compliments, that those are going to be used then for the betterment of the community and the services you provide. So I think that's an attitude, and it is the little things. It's just making people feel like that's a place we can go if we want to connect. It's one of the many places we hope people think about as places they can connect with their city government.
You're really talking about an organizational culture that's very citizen-friendly, customer-friendly. That's the kind of thing, though, that takes top to bottom buy-in. Let's start at the top. Did it take a while to convince the city council that this is the sort of city government we want to be, this is the face we want to present?
Yeah, I really haven't experienced difficulties in River Falls. So it's really been a pleasure to work here with the council, and I think they've seen the benefits of it. And even if they weren't fully aware or thinking about the benefits, their attitude has been that they have a lot of faith and confidence in staff. And so we haven't had a lot of difficulty buying in, but it is something in a more general sense that it is sometimes difficult for councils to buy in. It's difficult sometimes for city administrators, for city engineers, for finance directors who see themselves as, from a staff perspective, they are the experts, right? They can solve the problems of the community. They can figure out how to fix these things. And for the elected officials, they are the official gatherers of engagement.
Right.
So it's it is a different model where you're putting kind of mixing the community together. Sometimes those roles can get a little blurred, but at the end of the day, your results are kind of moving you forward because you're getting better information about better kind of sensors out there. We've got, in River Falls, we've got 15,000 sensors, so to speak. They're not digital sensors per se.
You don't mean people that are bleeping what
right.
the council is
no,
saying.
I just mean all of those people are feeling, hearing, seeing what's going on in the community,
Sure.
and they can provide quality feedback to you about what's going on, because as a city staff person, as a city council person, there's no way that you can cover the same ground that your 15,000 residents can. So that's a real challenge going forward for us to figure out how we're going to take all of those seeing, feeling, hearing, smelling, experiencing from your community members, and how do you kind of gather that in a meaningful way so you can use it going forward.
Well, and I want to talk more about that in just a couple of minutes, and maybe see if you can give me some examples of where that's been helpful. But before I get there, let's talk again about the internal buy-in. I mean, it's complicated to run a government. There's a lot of laws that regulate what you do. I mean, you've got to think in terms of transparency, all of this other stuff. Sometimes it's also not just a challenge to get your council to buy in, but to get your department heads, to get your staff, to get the fire chief, I mean, to get everybody on board. Talk about that. Is that, how do you do that? How do you work on that?
Yeah, one of the things that I find most fun about local government and being a local government manager is the varying cultures and differences in styles and management historically amongst your different departments.
Yeah.
So, you know, people think fire chief and they have an immediate kind of stereotype of what that organization is and how it is carried out and what that person does, and maybe how much they laugh in a day, you know, if they're the fire chief, and versus the city clerk and different departments. So engagement and all these other things we've tried to do to incorporate, not make it a separate thing, but it's incorporated as part of all the things we do. So that's sustainability, engagement, customer service. It's not kind of a program, it's just part of the normal operations. We really had to do culture first, which is we're one city. So whatever we're working on, we're all working on it together.
Yeah.
So if you're the fire department or the police department, ambulance, city clerk, finance, public works, utilities, we are all working at the same goal. So that certainly is the most difficult thing to work on as a city leader, I think. Again, we've had very good success in River Falls, in part to luck, meaning obviously it didn't just happen overnight. And I only started in 2009, so obviously there was a lot of groundwork laid and good employees and good attitude and positive feelings about what they can do for the residents. So that culture of one city, we're kind of all working on the same things. It helps you avoid the department saying, well, you know, we know what we're doing. This is our job to take care of, and we don't really need the engagement piece because, you know, we've got it covered. We've got it taken care of. And if you open that up to we're one city and we're all working on it together, then even if that department says we've got everything covered and we don't need any help, but this other department needs a lot of help, they're more willing to help you with the engagement activity. And then I suspect they learn a little bit about what they can do better in their department also, even if they start out with the motivation that, hey, we got everything covered, but we buy into this one city thing, so we'll kind of work on it together.
Nice.
So it's been helpful.
Let's go back to this notion of 15,000 sensors. And I think you mean that in the sense of like road sensors, you know, park sensors. People see things, feel things, hear things, slip on things, fall on things. How do you, give me some practical examples of where, first of all, how you encourage your citizens to engage on that kind of micro level, and then give me some examples of where it's been helpful.
Yeah, and what I mean is it would be a shame in our push as cities to have more electronic sensors, more cameras, more measurements, more everything in a digitized way. It would be a shame if we forget that we have these residents that are out there moving around, collecting all that information, and not gathering that in. So engagement is trying to capture some of the good information and the good judgment of all of your residents. So ways we do that is, we do it through traditional ways, like a survey. Let's just ask people about things to see if the perspective that city staff has by driving around in their truck or interacting with certain things is similar to what the experience of the resident is having. And maybe that's different by their socioeconomic status in the community. Maybe those that are making less income in the community are feeling things differently than those that have higher incomes in the community. And so those are all important things for us to measure. In an engagement situation, we might put a map up on the wall. In the case of the Kinney River Corridor Plan, and we said, put a dot where you live, put a dot where you work, and put a dot where you play. Right? And so all of a sudden now you've got this visual picture of the 350 members of the community that were part of that engagement effort, and it's a snapshot, so it's not a end-all be-all decision-making tool, but it provides you, all right, hey, there's a whole bunch of dots over here in play, and that's not even a place where the Parks Department or the city has thought about as where people gather. It's not something we've noticed, so you can kind of come up with these information points that are helpful to do it. And then it's also just having a one-on-one conversation with a resident when you have the opportunity. So if you're in the park and somebody's having a picnic, you can ask them how it's going. And you can get all kinds of information about, well, it would be nice if we had a plug here because we don't have, Grandma's brought her secret recipe mac and cheese and we want to keep it warm, but there isn't a plug for our crock pot. So just all these kind of various opportunities, whether they're big formal gatherings with official engagement tools, or they're just, hey, Jerry, you had a birthday party at the pool last week, how did it go?
How was it? Yeah. Okay, great. I want to talk about communications because, Scott, you seem to have, again, it's sort of an all hands, all means, all methods, a very broad menu, if you will, of ways to communicate back and forth with citizens. It's not just an annual newsletter and survey and a Facebook page that you use, is it? Tell me about some of the different tools you're using.
Yeah, so it's that one-on-one conversations. It's the news. We've got a traditional printed newsletter, and a website obviously is an important tool, and Facebook and YouTube, and informal gatherings and speakers, staff members going out and speaking to the Rotary Club or other groups. So it's a lot of the things that you would traditionally think about. It's working with different groups and community folks to kind of get information going on in the community. So it is that kind of, if there's an idea that might improve communication, we'll probably try it. The one that really caught my eye, kind of blew me away, was this whole community appreciation event. Tell me what that is. You buy lunch for everybody? Yeah, food is one of our biggest engagement. So we use that.
I'm there. I'm good at that.
We use that for staff engagement, and we also use it for community engagement. So we appreciate the community. They're the ones that provide us the resources to do the job on their behalf, and so why not have a picnic and have a little watermelon and corn and brats and hot dogs, and it's a good time and it's fun, and not everybody in the community can participate. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So we're kind of taking, if you take this all hands approach, it means that, all right, not everybody can come to a picnic at 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, but we're going to get a certain segment of the community there, and we have the fire open house on a weeknight. Later at night, we're going to get maybe some crossover, but we just kind of do these events because it helps us see more of the community. So we do landlord connections with our landlords, breakfast with them. We've done the engagement. We do a business breakfast with our top 100 utility customers, and do a different kind of engagement there. So it's an opportunity for us to get involved in a number of ways. And we do things like coffee with a cop. So you may only have 6, 8, 10, and we've had, I think, as many as 50 at a coffee with a cop. The more you're out there, the better chance you're going to get in contact with differing amounts of those 15,000 people that are out there in the community.
Did you, how long have you been doing, let's start with Community Appreciation Lunch. How long have you been doing that?
I think the community picnic or appreciation probably started 7, 8 years ago. I believe it predates my time here, so maybe even a decade they've done it. And it was started as a utility customer appreciation event. So we have own our own electric utility here, and it started that way. But again, we kind of took the approach that, hey, it's one city. We appreciate our customers, our residents, all the like. So then it just kind of grew into a bigger event. So all the different departments are there, and we've got snowplow for people to look at and climb around. And it's again an opportunity to have those one-on-one engagements with folks.
And I know most of our audience for this is, not surprisingly, other city administrators like yourself, city council members across the state. And I can hear a few of them in their minds saying, I can hear Joe Citizen saying, is that a good use of taxpayer dollars? Do you ever get that kind of pushback? And if you do, what's your answer?
We do get that kind of pushback. And our answer is kind of the answer I gave you. We think this is one of the best investment we can make into getting information from folks, and creating the relationship where maybe we don't get any information. Maybe our goal is at the customer appreciation event is not to kind of soak in all this data points for the city, but we're establishing a relationship that allows us to do that in the future. And it creates the attitude that, the city cares about me, and I know I know Scott, I've met him, he's a city administrator, and it takes the kind of the nameless, faceless bureaucracy out of the picture and puts back local government where it was, which is these are your neighbors helping you. They're providing services that you've asked them to help you provide to make your life better. So it gives us the opportunity to make those relationships. And food is a very inexpensive investment in happiness and engagement. So we do it, and we certainly have had people that have questioned that over time. But that's not unlike anything else you do in city government, right? That you could be doing something else with the money, and it's just a matter of what the priorities are. And like I said, the city council here has made it loud and clear that one of our priorities across the organization is customer service and engagement. So as it fits in those pieces, then we've had support to do it. We didn't have steak, though.
You didn't have steak?
We just
it was
have
strictly
hot dogs and brats.
Okay. And they were probably on sale. I want to talk, another one that you mentioned is your meeting, your connection with landlords. And I know that a number of our cities in Wisconsin, well, let's just say there are varying levels of connection between the city and the landlord community. Tell me about that one. How did it get started? Do you have a great working relationship with your landlords? Is it there to put out fires? What's that all about?
So Landlord Connections is, I think, a result of part of our culture, where ideas don't need to come from the top. And so Rhonda Davison, an employee of the city, many years experience in our utility department, said, you know what, we should do something with the landlords. Well, how about a landlord, some kind of program where we talk about varying issues. We can help them understand code issues, and we can also bring in speakers to talk about contract law and tenant agreements and all kinds of things that will be a service to them also, because they're big customers of us. The community is somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% rental properties. Now that's not all big buildings or things. We have a lot of single-family rental in this community also. And there's no centralized landlord association or kind of an official formal connection point for the city. So we said, well, let's have some eggs and bacon and see who shows up. So and we've taken it from there. So again, it's like a lot of the times if we hear about an idea that might improve our communication with a certain group or segment of our population, we're willing to try it. So we did, and it was successful. And we get anywhere between 2 dozen and 4 dozen landlords, all different kind of makes and models. So people that maybe have one income property in town that they rent to college students, all the way up to the kind of large multifamily buildings. The goal there was just how can we provide added value to the to a customer of ours. You know, they're utility customers, they're taxpayers, they're contributing to the tax base and other things, and what services can we provide, and then how can we improve our relationship. I don't think it was done strategically to try to create this kind of relationship ahead of time of other things coming, but obviously that's one of the great benefits of having these kind of engagements.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
you've established a relationship where they know Kevin and Rhonda and Scott and Greg and other employees of the city, and they know them by name, and they have a contact point. So if they get a letter from us on cross connections, and it says, well, you can call customer service, or you can call this person for the question. Well, they can do that, or they can call Greg, or they can call Kevin, or they can call Scott, and it gives them an opportunity to have that opportunity. So it's been beneficial on that end of things.
Awesome. Let's back up now a little bit and talk to people in the audience that are saying, okay, I get it, but how do I start? I mean, we're right now, we're sort of boxed into City Hall. We don't really reach out to the community, or we're not doing much. How do you tell them? How do you start? What should you do first?
Well, I think the first thing that it may be helpful for them to start by really uncovering the things they already are doing, because I suspect every city is doing a number of things that they haven't really categorized as engagement, or that they don't give themselves credit for. So I think finding those things that you're already doing is a good first start, and then thinking of how best they can go forward. So cities all have their own feel, character, culture. I suspect the decision makers in those communities have a good feeling for what is possible. So if we're very siloed and we think that's going to be a battle that is difficult to win on the first round, well, then maybe it's working with a single department on improving their engagement efforts. And obviously you'd pick a department that you think would have some willingness to do that. I suspect most communities have a library that's already has a culture of interacting and engaging with their residents, and that's a place they could start. There's certainly a lot of opportunity for engagement with the fire departments. It's a real feel-good opportunity for most communities. So I would take an assessment of your culture, figure out where you think you can head with this, and also take an inventory, and don't forget all the good things that you're doing already. So sometimes it can be overwhelming to say, well, this city's doing that, and how come we're done? It's like,
why aren't we doing those 12 things?
What are we doing here already and how are they impacting? And then you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's also all kinds of great things going on out in cities, and this profession is one of the best parts of working in local government is we don't have any secrets. There's no trade secrets. There's no secret sauce. There's no colonel's recipe. So call a city that you like what they're doing, email them, and see how you can implement that in your community.
Scott, is there a wrong way to start about engagement?
That's a good question. There probably is, but I'm not aware of it right now. So I think
you haven't discovered it yet?
The wrong way is doing it because you think it's something you have to check off a list. So, I mean, if you're just doing engagement because you think that's the thing that you ought to do because you read an article in the municipality magazine, then that's probably a bad way to start. I think you want to start with the idea that this can really improve our work life, this can improve our community, and it's something that will have benefits to you. And if you're not really a believer, then I think you start by figuring out if you're a believer first before you put your effort into it.
I think that's a great note to close on. I'm with Scot Simpson, the city administrator for the city of River Falls, and I'm Jerry Deshane on behalf of the League of Municipalities. Thank you for joining us for The Local Perspective.